This is your Hajj broadcast on Salam Media.
Welcome back. You tuned into our special Hajj broadcast, Hajj 1441, and are you in my company, Mariam Mia, until 1 p.m. today. I've got a great team. It's an all-female cast today. So myself presenting, Shazia at controls, Zakia and Dudu preparing everything and getting this production on the ground. So yes, sisterhood in action. And now we welcome a former consular general, a South African consular general to Saudi Arabia, stationed in Jeddah, Brother Shuaib Casso. And Brother Shuaib Casso has been with the Department of International Relations since 1995. He started his career there as a career diplomat. He's also well-traveled, like his counterpart in the 13th century, Ibn Jubair, who served in the court of the Granada governor. Brother Shuaib serves in the court of the South African government, doing similar things, I guess, in that time. So history repeats itself as well now in the 20th century. So we can see he's a modern-day Ibn Jubair because he was stationed in France as well as deputy ambassador from 2007 to 2010. And then I think for me, really a dream posting as a Muslim person. That's really a yearning posting that he was posted to Jeddah as a consular general from 2015 to 2019. He's back home in South Africa now, still with DIRCO, and he's currently serving as director for the Nordic and Baltic countries. So basically, he's been all over. So from the east to Europe and now right to the top in the Nordic and Baltic countries. So let's welcome him because he has a wealth of experience in terms of interacting with Hujjat, for those who come for Umrah, and also as Consular General, there's certain rights and responsibilities in terms of taking care of pilgrims who visit the shore. It's all under his watch. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome, Brother Shuaib Casso, to Salam Media on the special Hajj edition.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mariam, and to all your listeners, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to say a few words about the role of the consulate and our experience on Hajj.
So, Brother Shuaib, you can also write a little journal regarding your experiences in the time you were there. I know both yourself and your spouse, Amina, were very involved. In fact, you went beyond the call of duty to serve the pilgrims that came to Jeddah as a representative of Southern. So besides what was your duty and what you were duty bound in terms of your duties as Consular General, I know personally you took it upon yourself to receive guests to the kingdom, facilitate whatever issues they had, and just fulfilling the khidmat of residents who live in that area towards pilgrimage. So tell us about your experiences.
Mariam, you know, the Consulate General or the consulate in Jeddah, one of the key functions of the consulate in terms of the cabinet decision of 1994 was to support South African Hajj and Umrah, the pilgrims. And in this regard, we work very closely with the Hajj ministry in Saudi. We work very closely with all the Hajj structures like the Muassasa. We work closely with the service providers, whether they are the telephone service providers, the caterers. So we work very closely with them and liaise between them and Sahuk in some ways. In fact, it was the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, then the Department of Foreign Affairs in 1996, that was instrumental in the establishment of Sahuk to improve the whole experience of Hajj, the preparation of Hajj, and to ensure that we have a successful Hajj every year. And it is the only organization that the department really recognizes in terms of facilitation of South African Hajj and Umrah. So we have a key role to play in Hajj, and our objective is to ensure that there's a smooth and a problem-free Hajj as far as we can. So that is the official role, and the consulate has a direct responsibility, just for the interest of the listeners, for South Africans in distress. So if somebody passes away, somebody loses their documentation, people have overstay for illness or various reasons, people get lost. The consulate has a primary responsibility for that. Nobody else can fulfill that responsibility besides the consulate. And so we are close to the to Sahuk and to the Hajj ministry, because when the Hujjaj come in, we need to know who is coming in, when they arrive, when they are departing, because that allows us then to fulfill this role and this responsibility. So that's from the official point of view. But the entire experience of Hajj is a very humbling experience. I must admit, I've done it for 4 years while I was in Saudi. And each year, I tell you, I'm amazed at the effort that all the people involved in Hajj really put in to ensure a successful Hajj. Just to give you an example, the Hajj for this year, I'll take this year, although I wasn't involved this year. The Hajj for this year, the preparation from a South African point of view, started in December last year. Now, the consulate, what we would do is we would facilitate a program based on an invitation from the Hajj ministry for Sahuk and their team to come down to Saudi Arabia to meet with the Ministry of Hajj, usually the minister or the deputy minister of Hajj, to meet with all the Hajj service providers and the structures like the Muassasa, the Adillah, the transport companies, the airport companies, the caterers, the people in Medina and Makkah who facilitate Hajj. So all the different Hajj structures, to come there and meet with them and have discussions with them about the changes that are going to be taking place in Hajj. They reviewed, of course, they reviewed the last year's Hajj. They look at the changes that will be taking place, the new rules and new regulations. There's negotiations around prices and costs. And at the end of all of this, the South African delegation will sign a protocol. That protocol provides the legal basis for which South Africans will go for Hajj. And that is where the quota, the so-called quota, is applied, and it is given by the Ministry of Hajj. The official quota is 2,500, but in the last 2 years, they've been adding 1,000 at least more to that. And that protocol is signed in our presence. And in recent years, the Consulate General's name or some more representative of the Consulate, his name is put into that document to provide further legitimacy and strengthen the document. And then Sahuk would then sign, we would meet all the different service providers and sign service level agreements with each of those parties that would set the basis then for all the services that the South African Hujjaj would receive. Now this program that Sahuk goes on is a 10-day program, and it's a very, very intensive program. There's some days we would start early in the morning and finish late in the evening and still not have enough time to do all the work. So it's a very intense program. Now the Saudi government will meet every single country who's coming for Hajj. There's 180 some odd countries that come for Hajj. They meet all these delegations, starting off, they would start with the biggest delegation, probably Indonesia, and meet with all the delegations from those countries, right until the smallest one, maybe Singapore's got about 600 people. There's somewhere in the end. There are countries that have smaller delegations as well. So they will meet with all of them sequentially. So it's a huge undertaking. And then post the visit of Sahuk, they would then come back and they would then do the necessary in terms of preparing the South African public about what will take place in this year's in the forthcoming Hajj. They will meet the agents, they will meet the Hujjaj, different awareness programs, etc. And that's the South African program. What we would do on the side of the consulate is we would then support Sahuk from that side in terms of any problem areas, anything that needs clarity. We would follow up on the agreements we would make. We would follow up with the service providers, in particular those ones that are not official Hajj structures, for example, the cell phone companies, the communications, the caterers, those kind of people. We would follow that up. And as we get closer to Hajj, when the visas are taking place, when the visas are being processed and the approvals, if there are particular problems on the system with approvals of visas, we would then support Sahuk in troubleshooting. We would be there on the ground and assisting them. Now, most of the time, people don't really know about this because we don't really advertise it. We're supporting Sahuk and they work with us. We work very closely together, and our intention is really to see how best we can support the South African Hujjaj. And that takes place, all of this should be finished by around Ramadan. Sometimes it extends beyond Ramadan, but the preparation should all be done by then. So you can imagine the amount of work that goes in between what would be December until Ramadan and then post-Ramadan. And then 2 weeks after Ramadan, the Sahuk delegation would come for what you call the Hajj mission would come, and they would then come and set up to then facilitate the South African Hujjaj coming. And again, we would be involved in that process because the Sahuk would not be able to communicate directly with the Hajj ministry in a formal and official basis. So the consulate would then be the avenue through which they would do that, official letters, official communication about the accreditation cards, the access cards for the airport, etc., etc. So we would support them, but they would then take over the primary responsibility, and we would then be supportive, except of course if there are emergencies where we would then get directly involved. So the entire process of preparation for almost 2 million Hujjaj that are coming in. It is an extensive exercise. It is really truly humbling to know the magnitude of this operation. And I think people from outside, when they see it for the first time, they can absolutely be shocked that this takes place, and it takes place every single year. So I'm humbled by the experience. It was a wonderful experience. It was an eye-opener for me. And I learned a great deal about the efforts of those that are involved in it, both the South African side and the Saudi side.
Shuaib, you know what, you put this in context, and sometimes as lay people, we quick to criticize efforts and maybe in a bigger thing of things, when one thing is seemingly not in order, we sort of now, we blow it out of proportion. Now that you've put things in perspective from the Saudi's government side in terms of responsibility, we are but one small country in the bigger scheme of things, as well as the efforts of our own South African government through the Department of International Relations, the Consulate General and the ambassador specifically, as well as the Sahuk as well. As you've put it in perspective, that it's a series of facilitation, of meetings, of planning and this. And I think sometimes when we hear maybe a Hujjaj or maybe a group of them experience, maybe there wasn't enough, I don't know, amenities in a hotel or something like this from the operator side. You know, it makes headline news in South Africa, and we focus on this, but we don't see the groundwork in the efforts of all those involved in terms of the bigger picture of getting things together. I'm not a sort of downplaying things that may go wrong, but it's just that there's so much else that goes on behind the scene in preparation to receive 3 to 4 million people every year. This year is different, but I'm saying, look, the groundwork, nobody knew the pandemic is going to reach such epic proportions. So as you've pointed out, in December already, preparations were there to prepare for Hajj 1441 corresponding to 2020. So the groundwork has been laid. So now just the 1,000 or the limitation of Hajj, that was just because of circumstances, but it didn't mean that whatever preparations was going into wasn't fulfilled.
Let me just put this in a bit of perspective for you. The accreditation of Hajj and the South African Hujjaj and facilitating the Hajj fees, facilitating the visas, That is a Sahuk responsibility, and we play some supporting role in that. The Sahuk is responsible then for the Hujjaj coming in. So the arrival, so you'll find Sahuk at the airports, both in South Africa and Saudi, to ensure that the South African Hujjaj are well received. They're put on their buses, they get to their hotels, they're in the hotel. And they're responsible also then for the 5 days of Hajj. The agents are responsible for the rest of it. For the hotels, for example, some people come in for 6 weeks or 4 weeks, and in Medina, in Makkah, in the various hotels, or even in Azizia, in the various wherever they are accommodated. That is entirely a agent's responsibility. Although there are some regulations about that, in that the Hajj ministry these days wants to know before you arrive, you will have a contract for Hajj. That contract stipulates when you will arrive, when you will depart, your flights. It stipulates which hotel you will be in from which day until which day in Makkah and Medina and in Azizia. But that is an agent's responsibility. Sahuk is not responsible for what happens in your hotel and the services and what you pay for that. That is entirely between you and your agent. And I think there's some challenges around it, and maybe in the future we can talk a lot about some of the difficulties there and the expectations people have, and they don't receive what they receive. But Sahuk is not responsible for that, nor is the Hajj ministry. It is entirely between you and the agents, and it's a private sector kind of thing. Sahuk is then responsible for facilitating the 5 days of Hajj, either in special services or in what would be Camp B. Those services are stipulated, and the cost of that are stipulated by the Hajj ministry and their structures, the Muassasa, and they provide the actual services on the ground, the Muassasa. So what we do is we would negotiate with them on the cost of that, on what facilities they will provide and how much of it. And I think the challenges you experience in Hajj, we try and anticipate as many of them as possible. In terms of, at the moment, we know that it is the summer months in Saudi. So we try and ensure that there is proper working air cons, that there is enough water, that Sahuk provides. I think there's a special drink made out of tang with some additional nutrients on it. Those kind of things that they put in to ensure that the Hujjaj are well taken care of. But you can't anticipate all the problems. And you know, when there are 2.5 million people, a bus breaks down, somebody gets jammed, there's an accident, those things happen. But we try and anticipate as much as we can so that we make the Hajj as problem-free as possible. I think, you know, in 2017, we had quite a lot of problems, and we had some very honest and open discussions between us and Sahuk, and then again with the Muassasa and Hajj Ministry. And you'll see in 2018, 2019, all of those problems were resolved. We were a lot more proactive about it. So alhamdulillah, those are good things. The other things that people need to take note of is that Saudi itself, including Hajj, is going through a rapid transformation in terms of what Saudi is calling Vision 2020. So they're improving the Hajj sites and the facilities on every single year. They're improving services, they're improving efficiency. Let me just give you an example. You're speaking about people who've done Hajj many years ago. Our parents would sit in the airports probably 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours before they would be released into the buses and then travel to usually Medina. Today, I think that the target is 40 minutes. The target is 40 minutes from arrival to getting on the bus. It's 40 minutes. So that tells you.
So, yeah, so pleased to hear that. We're running out of time, but yeah, alhamdulillah. And I mean, that's so everybody's working towards a common goal to make Hajj as comfortable and easy as possible for the Hujjaj, for the guest of Allah, so that they can fulfill their fifth pillar of Islam, which is a yearning ever since, like I say, even a little child sees pictures and visuals of Makkah and Medina, and that's where they say, I need to sit in an airplane, I want to go to Makkah and Medina. So it's a yearning for every Muslim. And like I said in my introduction, going for Hajj, performing Hajj and Umrah is on our bucket list, but that never gets erased. So even if you went, alhamdulillah, it's a yearning that I want to go again and again. So it's in the top of your bucket list, and it stays there until you depart from this world. We never say we're satisfied if an opportunity presents itself, even if you've been 20 times, the 21st time is you're going to take that opportunity. So alhamdulillah so much. But I want to check to you.
You know, in this, you're talking about everyone wants to go repeatedly for Hajj. And the problem is that we are 1.6 billion plus Muslims in the world, and only 2 million people or 2.5 million people maximum, 2.2, 2.3 million can go for Hajj. South African waiting list is 5 years. The waiting list in some of the countries like Malaysia and Indonesia and Turkey and Egypt is far, far longer. Some of them 60 years, 70 years. So I think we must make shukr as South Africans. I also think that this year, nobody predicted that the Hajj would be, no South Africans would go from here, from South Africa, from our shores and fly down. So that we make shukr that the 3,500 we get every year, we don't complain about the quota, we make shukr for that quota because Allah Ta'ala this year took away that quota for us. So we must make shukr for that. And we hope that all the Hujjaj who were credited this year will stay ready and remain ready for next year's Hajj, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah Shuaib, but one day I'd like to get you on in terms of time permits for a longer hour to chat to you actually about your whole experiences in Jeddah with regard to this, because it's fascinating and it's also interesting, and you've given us a behind the scene first-hand account in terms of preparation to receive specifically South African Hujjaj as well as the Mutamareen who come and perform Umrah as well. Jazakallah for giving us your time. I know it's out of your busy schedule there, but you can return now further north to the Nordic countries and all the issues that you do there for South Africa there. And inshallah, we wish you all the well. And I'd like to wish your family, from our family at Salam Media, to your family, blessed day of Eid al-Adha, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Pleasure.